What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we have a big old green day over here on the right side of the screen as the Bitcoin price pokes above what we were at earlier in the week on Tuesday, as we're now sitting at 26,750 as I'm recording at this exact moment, coming off of last week's intense moves with the collapse of SBF Bank as Bitcoin came back and hit the 200-day moving average, bouncing right on out of there. Taking a look over here on the weekly time frame, you can see Bitcoin's current price has poked above the 200-week moving average. So the thing we've been stuck under for so long. Of course, we know we've had that 50-week come in there and intersect as well. So we've broken through both of them at this time. Currently, there still is over 2 days remaining before this candle will close. So right now, it doesn't necessarily mean anything because a big fat wick pulling it straight back down would be really ugly. So we've really got to get till Sunday evening when this closes out to see if there's any significance to it. But by all means, seems like there's a little room for hope here, as we do see that it has poked above both of them. Dating back throughout history, this is the first time we've really ever spent prolonged periods of time underneath that 200-week moving average, as we saw that this was actually the support level back in 2019, 2018, and 2020, and of course back there in 2015 as well, when the bottom of Bitcoin came in back then. So we've always seen this level act as a support, but this year, the big struggle bus underneath it. So super optimistic to see us on the north side of that right now, but we still have to get to the end of the week before we could say, hey, we've actually cleared, broken, and closed above it. Otherwise, another victory for the bulls as it continues to poke its way up there. I can't tell you how many people commented on my videos and in my live streams telling me we were going to 12K, and on my Twitter, of course. But I could never get a real justification or reasoning out of anybody on why that was. So the herd was all swung into this 12K, but didn't have a reason why. Zooming out on that monthly time frame, we've been getting those signals that have typically marked when bottoms are already in for Bitcoin, as we saw back in 2015, 16, and 2018 and 2019, as we're still able to hold that bullish support level there for the relative strength index. The stochastic RSI has already started moving up off those lows, as it did back here on the bottoms of all of these. So the signs have been there. Question still is the way it's going to work back up there. That's still going to be a challenge in here. But Bitcoin definitely has the narratives to go along with it right now with everything going on in the banks. As TXMC had tweeted over here last night or yesterday afternoon, the $297 billion expansion of the Fed's balance sheet since last Friday effectively erased 54% of the $545 billion of quantitative tightening that was enacted since last June. Months of progress reversed in days. And Lynn Alden posted over here as well. The numbers are in. The Fed's balance sheet increased by nearly $300 billion last week as they've been shrinking the balance sheet. And then whoop, back up we go. For those who weren't here back in 2019 when the repo spike had happened, right? We had QT going on. The balance sheet was being reduced. And the Fed stepped in with the overnight lending in the repo market. Whoop. And then later on, we all know what happened. March of 2020. Whoop. Off and away it went. So I've seen a lot of people out there arguing whether or not it's actually QE that's begun or QT has stopped, or the semantics of what it is, and the Fed just opening up their lending facility, whatever it is. The reality of it is, as Magoo states over here on Twitter, I love following Magoo. I love listening to him in Twitter Spaces, debating the semantics of is it QE or was it a bailout or moot points. At the end of the day, the Fed and Treasury had to create a new tool to save the fragile system from collapsing. So whatever we want to argue about this on, well, it's not really QE or QT still going on or interest rates are still happening and this and that and this and that. They had to create a new tool. They had to step in and help. And that's typically the first step, as we saw back in 2019. So the narrative for Bitcoin is very strong right now with money printers, QE, struggling banks. These are the narratives that crypto has lived for. Now, one of the big things on everybody's mind is with the Bitcoin dominance, and me as well, as this range has now continued on here for 2 years. And in this moment, Bitcoin dominance is moving back to the top of the range once again. So after a 2-year washing machine, it still continues on here. And question remains, will it break out here right now? And I think it's time for a good reminder because people ask me a lot, what do I think of the Bitcoin dominance? And the reality is the Bitcoin dominance falls in only two circumstances. And we'll move over here to CoinTrader Pro so we can get a bigger look at this and do some compare features in here. We will have to excuse these illiquid wicks that have shown up here on this chart. This is just an API issue connecting to CoinMarketCap, which is where it extrapolates its data from. But we have three examples of where the Bitcoin dominance does fall. And these are the only three examples we have of massive falls in the Bitcoin dominance. In the 2018 bear market, as the price of Bitcoin fell and fell and fell, the dominance rose all the way back up. And what was interesting about the dominance we're claiming back there is it rose all the way back up to the 702 Fibonacci retracement level in here. We can really see that's where it petered out at. And this was the stopping point before it rolled back over. So we have an example of falling, falling, and falling, and we have an example of rising. Rising happened as Bitcoin was falling and crashing and crumbling. Falling happened as Bitcoin was breaking out into a new all-time high and as Bitcoin was breaking out into a new all-time high. So let's take a look at that. Here we are in 2014 through 2017. We'll look at a break above the all-time high that happens right in here. And you can see we go up and we poke it, then we break it, and then we really start pushing our way through it. The big fall takes place all through here after Bitcoin breaks through its all-time high. The next major stab happens after Bitcoin hits its all-time high and goes back in for a retracement in here, and it bottoms out the second that that retracement is done. So we see this fall all happening all throughout here as this retracement is taking place in here. Once the retracement's complete, the real bear sets in, and then the Bitcoin dominance starts working its way all the way back up. We see the example of breaking all-time high, Bitcoin dominance goes down, retracing, Bitcoin dominance goes down. So let's move over here to 2020 and 2021. We see that Bitcoin dominance falls shortly after the breakout of the all-time high. So you see the breakout of the all-time high happen here for Bitcoin. We'll zoom in a little bit. So we have breakout of all-time high happen here for Bitcoin right here. And then we see as the breakout takes place, this is where the reversal in Bitcoin dominance comes in right in here. In this moment, as the Bitcoin dominance is rising, we could see it is taking place all throughout the downtrending price action of the bear market and deep into the depths of the washing machine that took place in here. So the consistent messaging is that the Bitcoin dominance can fall in only two circumstances. One, Bitcoin breaking out into a new all-time high, or two, if Bitcoin is going back into a retracement, and that's all it's going to do before it rolls over. Still, to this moment, we don't know. This is a washing machine of Bitcoin at this point. We'll take that off the screen just to see it a little bit easier. Clearly different from what we had back in 2018 and 2019, and kind of overlay how this actually looked in here, is that by the time this has happened, we had already really worked our way back up. Even if we wanted to be a little bit lenient and we'll just say, hey, we just completely skipped having that second one. We'll even just start ourselves over here and just say, hey, we're doing it like that. Okay, still quite different from what we saw, especially since we didn't actually see the second run happen here in the altcoin market where this fell, where we had a retracement. We know we didn't get a retracement, right? So this is kind of a moment where everybody's thesis will get tested. Like we've said, if Bitcoin is heading back to new all-time highs, the Bitcoin dominance is very clear that it says nothing will happen with the altcoin market until Bitcoin breaks the all-time highs, and that Bitcoin dominance will be victorious as the Bitcoin price rises. However, if that's not what is in the cards for Bitcoin, and if it's only a retracement coming in here for Bitcoin, this is the best shot for the altcoin market. There's two shots, either into a retracement or into a breakout into new all-time high, based on how the Bitcoin dominance has behaved before. If the Bitcoin dominance is collapsing from here as Bitcoin gets really up into these retracement levels, if we start to actually see the Bitcoin dominance collapsing in here while Bitcoin is still in retracement levels, the writing is very clearly on the wall that Bitcoin is not going to set a new all-time high. It's very clear. However, if the Bitcoin dominance can rise as Bitcoin's price continues to rise, that is the best case scenario for Bitcoin to set a new all-time high, and that we will not see Bitcoin dominance fall until we get a new all-time high for Bitcoin. That is simply what the data tells us has happened each cycle. The data has said for the last 9 months, the bottom of Bitcoin is working itself out right in here. Question is, does Bitcoin go back into retrace and then turn over to head to significant lows Or is this the beginning of a whole new cycle? If it is the beginning of a whole new cycle for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin dominance is very clear that it will not break down until Bitcoin sets a new all-time high. So for those who believe that Bitcoin is going into a new all-time high and we are starting a new 4-year cycle, Bitcoin block reward halvings, everything happens in 4 years, we're going to set new all-time highs for Bitcoin, then your thesis based on historical data should be that the Bitcoin dominance is going to break out and that the Bitcoin dominance is going to go higher, because that is what has happened in each cycle when Bitcoin starts a new cycle. Bitcoin dominance swallows the market as it goes back to the all-time high. It's not until that all-time high breaks that the Bitcoin dominance finally falls. That's what's happened in both circumstances over the last 2 major cycles that have happened over 4 years apart, right? Took breaking the all-time high for dominance to finally crack down. So if your thesis is not that we're only going to go into a retrace, but if your thesis is we're going to new all-time highs eventually, then by default, based on history, you should be in the camp of Bitcoin dominance is going to go much higher than where it is right now. So why am I in the camp of thinking Bitcoin won't go into new all-time high? And the best chance there is for a retracement. And it's because of the things we've talked about many times, that Bitcoin has now had 3 major super cycles that have happened here of the exact same length. And that even our most recent one that lasted from 2015 all the way through 2021, it's our 3rd major super cycle. We've now done 5 waves up. Typically, when you have the crash, retrace, reaccumulation to 4.236 extension, the ending comes right back down here below that low, the low that was set back there in December of 2018, in conjunction with the Dow Jones Industrial Average bubble that has been printed in here. We've gone through this many times. It is each time that Bitcoin breaks out into a new all-time high was also in line with when the Dow Jones was breaking out into a new all-time high. So your 2016, 2017 bull run happened after 3 years of ranging for the Dow. Bitcoin breaks out into a new all-time high as the Dow Jones does. Your 2020, 2021 bull run for Bitcoin happens after 3 years of ranging for the Dow, breaks out into the new all-time high. Bitcoin goes with it at the exact same time as well. And you know what? Even your 2013 bull run back then happened right when the Dow broke out pre-Great Financial Crisis. So all 3 of those major cycles for Bitcoin all took off and broke out right when the Dow did. It was not Bitcoin block reward halvings or 4-year cycles. It all took place with these things. So if that's to be true, if Bitcoin is to break out into a new all-time high, one would have to suspect eventually the Dow Jones will as well. The problem I have with that, with the Dow Jones, is that the Dow has done the 5 waves with the double tack, bull flag, breakout, backtest, V bottom off into the new all-time high. And my suspicion is we're just working on ABCing in here before this thing does eventually roll itself over and go. So if you're to believe in a new all-time high for Bitcoin, you would also need to believe in the new all-time high for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. If you have that belief of both of them, then you should definitely be in the camp of that the Bitcoin dominance is going to significantly rise, because that is what has happened in each of the past cycles. However, I think things are more complicated than that, and I think that's also why we've seen a more complicated Bitcoin dominance than we did in the past, where Bitcoin dominance just rises into Bitcoin's bear. Instead, we end up getting a 2-year range of the Bitcoin dominance happening in here. So everybody's thesis is going to be tested here. Is Bitcoin just doing another one of its 4-year cycles? Is Bitcoin going to break out into new all-time highs? Is Bitcoin going to do what it's done every time? If Bitcoin's going to do what it's done every time, people should definitely be in the camp of it's going to go higher for the Bitcoin dominance. If you don't think the Dow Jones is going to set a new all-time high, and if you don't think Bitcoin's going to set a new all-time high, then this is going to be far more complicated. And technically, we use the terms Bitcoin dominance falling and alt season interchangeably. They're actually the exact same thing. If the Bitcoin dominance is falling, it has always been, that is when alt season is happening. So everything we just said here, talking about Bitcoin dominance happening whenever Bitcoin dominance is breaking out into an all-time high, or Bitcoin dominance, or Bitcoin is going back into a retracement, we've also said those exact same things many times, just using the words alt seasons. When do alt seasons happen? They happen when Bitcoin's breaking out into a new all-time high, or when Bitcoin's going into a retracement. So it's no different. If the Bitcoin dominance is rising, an alt season is not happening at this moment. Fortunately, the altcoin market has a beautiful setup. This is exactly what the setup looked like back in 2016 before it went shooting off into outer space, as it went back and found support on top of the previous all-time high. as we could see back in here, as we have done right in here, but the fall of dominance did not take place until the firing up began. And as you can see, it has not begun firing up yet. So I get asked about the Bitcoin dominance a lot. And it all comes down to what people's theses are. You can assume something different will play out. You can always assume that, but it's not based on any type of quantitative data. If you want to use quantitative data and say, what is something measurable we can look at from the past to apply to the present to say, what are the conditions that we can look for? There are two conditions for this thing to fall. And that is either Bitcoin breaking out into a new all-time high, or if Bitcoin is going back into a retracement and if it's not going to be breaking out of that retracement. So if Bitcoin starts heading back to say $45,000, $50,000 and this thing is crumbling down to the ground, altcoins are taking off, then we know based on history, Bitcoin will not get through the retracement levels. However, if this continues rising as Bitcoin gets back to the retracement levels, it is far more optimistic that this market could actually rampage significantly higher than Bitcoin just going into a retracement. Doesn't guarantee it, but at least it doesn't signal the Doomtown narrative, the Doomtown scenario. And mind you, this wouldn't be Doomtown at the time. This would be far exciting, but what it does signal based on history is this, at least from my interpretation. So reminds me a lot of what it was like back in 2019 and 2020. When you start seeing Bitcoin dominance rise like this, you start seeing people kind of freak out. Oh my gosh, what's going on with Bitcoin dominance? You get everybody DMing, everybody in the chats and everything like that. And it's kind of the same mistake everybody makes that, I buy some Bitcoin. I don't buy a lot of Bitcoin, but I know to have some exposure to Bitcoin in each cycle, even though I don't believe Bitcoin will provide the biggest percentages. I do know there's always this risk of Bitcoin going up a little bit. So in November, December, after the FTX collapse, I did buy some Bitcoin. But that Bitcoin for me is only to hold in case of a scenario that the Bitcoin dominance rises. Should the Bitcoin dominance rise, I will easily let go of my Bitcoin and rotate it to other places in the market. More of just a small insurance policy on the market. Because I can do math, even if it goes all the way back to retracement levels, even if it goes all the way back to the 702 Fibonacci retracement, and it gets all the way up in here, it's still less than a 100% rise from current prices of where we're at right now. I don't know about you, but for me, I don't come to this insanely volatile market to get 97% gains. I come to catch the much bigger rides that happen here in the market. And there's multiple ways to capitulate in this market. And I've talked about this many times. There's capitulation in regards to price action. Extreme price action can cause capitulation. Then time can cause capitulation. Then jealousy can cause capitulation. Fortunately, I believe we have moved beyond the price capitulation. I believe we have moved beyond time capitulation. We're now going to move on to jealousy capitulation. And if you can remember what jealousy capitulation feels like, go back and live in 2021 where everybody is chasing every single thing that is moving. What's the next meme coin? I better let go of this meme coin that I own to chase this other meme coin. It's about bouncing around and chasing the next thing that is up, which is great. That's when things start getting exciting. But regardless of what order things play out in here, the market is up and I will take it, man. We've got a $2,000 Bitcoin candle printed today. We've got the altcoin market up 5%. What a great way to end the week after the second week of just banking fears. We've spent 9 months screaming that the bottom of the market is in. We've had to deal with the 12Kers ever since June. Check it out. Market go up. And one thing to remember, whenever that does happen for that Bitcoin dominance to start falling, historically, they don't last long before they're all over. We have never had a time throughout history of where the fall lasted longer than 132 days. So pretend you had something more along the lines happening like this happening in here for Bitcoin. Your 132 days could end up being somewhere in here or here or here. Doesn't matter. The box is small. And the biggest alt season we've ever seen in the history of the cryptocurrency market was actually this one, which was 106 days, which was this one coming off of that Bitcoin all-time high right in there. 106 days of insanity. And to just kind of remind people of how people won't believe it'll be coming to an end, or just the general herd is always wrong. We can reference that to that again too. But even in here, I was saying the velocity we were moving at in here said that this would be done by June. And this actually ended up completing itself in May. It happened so quickly. If you look at how long this major fall happens right here, we're talking right here to right here, that big major fall 45 days. It becomes a whole lot thinner in time when we see it like that. Then you see how much time you spend after that doing this nonsense right in here, right? That is how short-lived these will be. So whenever it happens, it'll happen quickly. That's how they always are. They'll just show up, they'll happen quickly, and then they'll be over. So when that day does come, I'll be doing those reminders all over again. The world will be hating me once again. Like in November of 2021, the masses will believe we'll be going much higher. Or like in December of last year, so 3 months ago, everybody believes we're going lower. Either way, what a time to be alive and really to see this action happen here for Bitcoin. And it would be nice to actually see this close happen for Bitcoin here. We weren't able to get that daily close last time there to get above that February 20th high and close there when we had that breakout happen there just on Tuesday. It did pull back down below there. So a nice close up here above 25,200 would be awesome. Because I've seen a lot of people point to it too that, hey, what if this is like kind of a wonky 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you do? Complete 5, 6 rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5. Then you go on for 7, right? Well, hey, you're getting up there. It's really kind of starting to invalidate that, which is why I haven't leaned on that being the circumstance of what's going on in here, just because that's just not what a lot of the other indicators have been pointing at in here. And it's not what the altcoin market has been signaling over here on the weekly time frame and with the indicators that, hey, like everything has looked okay over here on the altcoin market to not go take out those lows. This is what we've done before. This is a great technical location with Wyckoff accumulation, and we're getting all the signals here on the bigger time frames that that's not what's coming on in here. So an excellent move there on Bitcoin as the market still just kind of continues its turnaround happening in here. And I'm just thrilled for this moment, man. It's been a really rough ride ever since June. It's one thing for, all the diamond eyes and laser eyes and diamond handed people to be screaming at you that, you're wrong. We're going to keep going higher. And you're screaming that you're not. It's a different story when, you're screaming, hey, look, we're working on our bottoming process in here. And everybody's screaming at you, no, we're going to go lower because everybody's in a lot of pain, right? Prices have been down for a long time. Everyone's riddled with fear rather than being riddled with greed. These are tough times. It's nice to see the turnaround start to happen in here. And one of the reasons why, for me, it's important to be a bull more so at the lows than it is to when we start moving back up is because these range turnarounds, they can just be such washing machines. And so this right here, and just an example of everybody asking about the Bitcoin dominance, is because the market is clearly moving on from being fear-ridden, right? So they're moving out of being full of fear and they're moving into FOMO. And so buying into FOMO always terrifies me, especially in ranges. So this group of people right here, they're probably all good. This group of people right here are probably kind of struggling right now on what they should be doing. And it's really just about building a thesis at this point. What do you think you got? How much time horizon do you got? For me, I stick with my thesis. I'm still expecting this level right in here. This one right here at about 40K is one to be real worried of too. For me, in our Ethereum example from 2018, this was the level where the turnover happened at. However, when you look at all of your retracement levels, they take you a little bit higher before something like that could end up happening. Spent a year talking about retracements. Hey, look at us go, just as we always have. And if you want to see a video of just the biggest case for crypto and being your own bank and self-custody that there is, when Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary of the United States, spoke in front of Congress yesterday, she got asked a question that just proved the point of everything going on in the banking system right now is totally to benefit the big banks. And it was just absolutely eye-opening to see that when she gets asked, hey, so isn't everything you're doing going to end up flocking all the money to the big banks? She just gets completely flabbergasted and she just can't even really talk very quickly because she pretty much gets called out on it and recognizes it that what they are doing is giving all the money to the big banks. And we're watching the government work in unison with big banks to help big banks win and to squash all small and community banks. And if that doesn't infuriate you, well, okay, that's fine. But man, dude, not cool. I've retweeted that over here on my Twitter. If you want to watch that, you can follow me on Twitter at BCBacker. But geez, if that doesn't light the fire for crypto, man, oh my gosh. So, in summary, as we begin to wrap up this week of crypto, which ended up being pretty positive in here, we could see that Bitcoin smashed into that 200-day moving average, has since popped up, now sitting above the February highs over here and those August highs right now. Will we get that daily close today? That'll be the thing to watch, as Bitcoin is now poked back above the 200-week moving average at the same time. Still, at this point, not through any Fibonacci retracement levels just yet, still sitting below the 236, but we can see FOMO for Bitcoin returning with a lot of the narratives that are happening out there in the world, along with the Bitcoin dominance moving back up within the range that it's been in for almost 2 years. Really, it started right here in April of 2021. For me, one of the things I'm watching out there is gold right now as we're getting ready for the weekly candle to close in here. We have not seen gold be able to close above that 702 Fibonacci retracement right there. As we head into the end of the week, gold is trying to take the stab at it, as we have seen the Dow Jones get rejected from that level at the exact same time. As we know, the Dow had a similar fate, getting back to that 702, knocked back, went back to it again, knocked back again. Throughout history, breakouts typically happen for one or the other and not both. So that'll be the big watch of today as this comes to a close here for gold in later this afternoon. But an otherwise positive day, positive week for the cryptocurrency market. And it feels good to be back. And like I told you guys, I would actually end up filling you in on what I was up to last week. I tweeted back in February saying that I will be away from Twitter and YouTube from March 6th through 11th. And there was a reason why I said also Twitter, right? Rather than just YouTube. It's one thing to be able to tweet at the same time, but it's because I was actually up there in the mountains and in the jungle of Costa Rica. I was on a mission trip with my church, and I knew I wouldn't have cell phone reception because we went deep into San Vito, which is where a lot of indigenous tribes live. And our goal was to build a house because a lot of them live in these shacks. And we were building it for the pasture of their tribe. And we really started at ground zero with this whole thing before we started putting in a bunch of cement poles in there to build structure for it and eventually give it some support in here. And then here's a time-lapse video I put together of us putting the walls up. So I'm the guy here in the white hat with the white shirt. So you say, there we go, here he is. And then you'll see me lifting some of these things up, and we're getting the walls put in for the house. It's pretty cool, about 30 seconds. But it's the idea of how these are built. Big cement blocks going in on the walls to put the whole thing together. And then eventually I'll show you a picture here in just a second when we make our way all the way throughout the whole perimeter of the house. And then even here on all these internal walls, we have to do the same thing and put these things in here. So that's kind of how that whole process was. And each of those bricks felt like they weighed like 200 pounds each. But that's kind of what it looked like once we had all these walls put in here, and what the end result looked like once all the walls were put in. Then, got a roof put on there, got electrical put in there, got lighting put in there. And just with the amount of days that we had in there, we didn't get an opportunity to put stucco in and cover all that up. But it should be completed by now already. There were some people staying behind that were going to go ahead and finish that. But this is the typical meal that you get there with the Guaymi tribe up there in San Vito. Pretty much rice and black beans is the staple of their diet. Got some vegetables and a chunk of meat to go with each lunch that we had. It was pretty much the same thing every day, just a slight variation of what we had. Of course, it was absolutely stunningly beautiful there. You could see just your eyes can look super far. These are mountain ranges back here, but everything is covered in life. It's all green. It's all foresty, all the way to the tops of these mountains and back. Got a little bit of a video of it here as we were driving, so you can kind of get a depth perception of what it looked like down there in Costa Rica. Absolutely beautiful place to be. Even had an opportunity to catch a rock that dates back to the Mayans and some original Mayan carvings happening in there. Plenty of wildlife up there. There's plenty of dogs running around, plenty of chickens running around. And hey, check out this turkey. He was actually kind of a jerk. So he came up and he was kind of like not pleased with me standing right there. But I said, you know what? I think I could take you, turkey. And he came right up to me and then walked right on past. I thought that was pretty cool. If you guys remember when I was on vacation with my wife back in October of 2021, we came across a turkey over there in Tennessee, but definitely not as beautiful as this turkey. Stunningly gorgeous. But it was really a trip full of work, hard work, very little leisure time, really just kind of being up there the entire time and sleeping in a cabin We called it the Widowmaker of what the shower was like. So you don't really have a hot water heater. They have like this electrical thing that is attached to the shower head that kind of heats the water at the last second, but there's these like cords sticking out of it. And like you can hear the electricity coming from it, where if you reach your hand up there, you're going to get electrocuted while you're in the shower. It was just, living on the edge while we were up there the whole time, and not having cell phone reception while I was there. I knew it when I got there. I'd already checked my plan. I knew my plan. My cell phone reception was just, I was going to have nothing when I was there. But the whole point of us being there was to build a house for this guy, and for his family. And at the end of the day, they did have a place to move into. And it seems pretty small, right? It's only 400 square feet. It's a two bedroom, but a massive upgrade from their 100 square foot shack, where 5 of them live in that 100 square foot room. So hard work, man. Exhausting. I've definitely come back with a little bit of a stomach bug going on there. Must have bumped into a couple of things, kind of getting my skin cleared up a little bit. Don't want to go into too much detail on everything, but kind of what you expect living out there in the wild. And one of my favorite parts of the actual trip is that every day I had to walk over this bridge so you could just look right through it. And some days, you'd get a lot of rain up there in the forest. And so there'd be days where the river is really kind of rampaging like it is here on this day. This is our first full day of work. We got rained out in the late afternoon as the storm came through, but you could just look straight down about 100 feet to that river down below you as you walked over it. And it was just so impressive to see that every time. When we get to work and start, we'd have to walk over that bridge, and then we were done. It was kind of like the sigh of relief that, man, that long day is over. That was a tough day, and hey, we're done. So hard work. The job did get done. Obviously, the markets went crazy, but hey, we're back to cover it all. And what an experience for me to do something like that. So, all right, that's going to be it for today for the fluff. We'll save the fish and the drumming for another day. That was the big thing, is the whole Costa Rica trip that I had. But I hope that you guys have been doing well, holding up okay, as crypto market seems to be holding up through all of the chaos that has been going on in broader markets. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in markets in the morning. And, if anything crazy happens in the weekend, maybe I'll check in with you guys. But all right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.